What is the role of a chemsex advisor? It's really important that when a person I'm going to call them clients. So if a client, that means someone who is seeking support with their drug use, is sitting in front of you and you're a drugs worker, if they're meeting for the first time, the very first thing you do is let them know what a drugs worker's job is and isn't. A lot of people seem to think that we are therapists. A lot of people think that we're psychologists or that we are psychiatrists even. A drugs worker's job is very different from those things, and the client sort of deserves to know what our job is and what our job isn't. So I'll usually begin by saying, hi, my name is David. I'm a drugs worker. I'm glad to meet you today. We're going to have a chance to talk about some things, but it would be really helpful first if I explain what my job is and what my job isn't. I'll also let you know that we've got half an hour today, so I hope I don't have to interrupt you at certain points, but I do want to keep it very focused on the right things so that you get the best out of this session. So I'm sorry if I do have to interrupt you, and keep it focused on a point during some points. As a drugs worker, my job is to help you identify some kind of goal to work towards. It might be exploring the role drugs are playing in your life. My job is to help you to do that, but mostly to identify a goal. Like, what do you want to change? Do you want to be safer? Do you want to take a break for a while? Do you want to stop forever? Do you want to learn some harm reduction techniques? What is the thing you want to change? How can I help you? And my job is to help you achieve those goals. Usually by things like how to identify a goal and achieve it, even though there's going to be lots of different changing moods through the week. You're going to have cravings during the week which will prevent you from achieving your goal and make you use even if you don't want to sometimes. I can help you manage those cravings and learn techniques to do that. It's important to know that I'm not a therapist, so there might be things that come up that are very personal, very traumatic from your history. I'm glad that this feels like a safe space for you to talk about those things, and we can in a light way, but I'm not a qualified therapist. I'm a drugs worker, and it's very different. So talking about some very crucial traumatic experiences from your past can in fact trigger you to use more this week, and it's really, my training tells me to not indulge those conversations too much. There's something that's better left till you've got some stability around drugs and you feel like I'm in control of triggers. I'm not going to use for the wrong reason. I can commit to a goal and stick to it. And when you want to explore those things with a qualified therapist, I can help you find that right therapist. But me as a drugs worker is to not go there, but just to help you focus on what do you want to change and what are the goals you want to achieve in the coming week or weeks, and I'm going to help you achieve those goals. So there would be a nice warm welcome and explaining of what the drugs worker's job is and isn't. My job is definitely not to prescribe any behaviour or to diagnose a problem. So if a person says to me, am I an addict? That's not a drugs worker's job to say whether a person is or not. Addict is kind of a self-identifying word. It's something that a person can use to define themselves if that description suits them, if they like it. If the person might want to explore what the word addiction means to them or to other groups of people, or how it's represented in culture, that might be an exploration that might be helpful for the person, for the client. But it's certainly not our job to say a person is or isn't an addict, or whether their behaviour is addiction or isn't addiction. That's prescriptive, and that's a very subjective term. It's not objective. So that's something a person can use to identify as themselves. Giving advice is something that is also very cautiously done by the drugs worker. In motivational interviewing, which is the main kind of method that is used in the conversational method between a drugs worker and a client, is very much about helping a person find their own solutions to things, helping a person identify goals they want to work towards, helping them find their solutions to work towards something. If I have some advice or some tips or some information that might make it easier for them, it's really important that I ask their permission to give them this information. Dispensing information or prescribing behavior or prescribing advice is very it goes against the training of motivational interviewing training, which is what a drugs worker does. It's very much about letting the client sitting in front of us be in charge of their own choices, find their own ways, find their own solutions through the discussion. So if I want to give someone some advice, let's say it's how to inject more safely, I won't just give them the information. I'll ask them if they want to know some information that I might have about how to do it safely. When a person asks, yes, I would like that. That makes them much more receptive to learning. So the drugs worker will never give or prescribe advice or behaviour without it being requested or a person giving permission to do that first. It's a really important part of the dynamic. That dynamic is very important because sometimes a person who's struggling with drug use can be very frightened of their own choices, of their own situation and circumstances they're finding themselves in, and they put a lot of trust in us, the drugs worker. And it's really important that everything about the relationship puts them back in charge, always puts them back in charge of their own choices, so they don't feel like they're being lectured to, told to, judged, or told how to behave. And a dynamic might develop where they're inviting you to do that, and it's really important that we always remind them that they are in charge of their choices. They're in charge of every choice they're going to make this week. It's not our job to rescue them. It's not our job to give them a magic pill that will solve the problem that they might feel they have. Our job is to help them find their own solutions, to find their own voice and their own agency to make their own choices. Motivational interviewing is described as dancing with a person as opposed to wrestling with them. So that's why you wouldn't give advice to someone that hasn't asked for it, because that's just too dictatorial. When a person asks for something, they're receptive to learning it. And if they haven't asked for it or shown any interest in wanting that information, it's just not going to be registered very well. It's kind of a basic one-on-one on how people learn. It is, again, an uncomfortable thing. We have to explain to people that there is no magic wand. There is no pill. There is no psychotherapy that fixes addiction, that gives them control over those choices. You know, whether it's chocolate, whether it's diet, whether it's exercise, whether it's calling my mum on a regular basis, whether it's all these things that I should be doing that I don't always do. There's no magic solution to make me do them all the time. There's good weeks and bad weeks. There's weeks when I'm really good about eating chocolate, and there's weeks when I'm really bad about eating chocolate. But it's all to do with my motivation and how committed I am to it, how important it is to me. And so drugs are kind of the same thing. So you'll have good weeks and bad weeks. It's important that the client knows that we can't fix that. We can't make them have successful weeks every week for the rest of their life. We can't give them this magic toolbox which will give them absolute control over everything. What we can do is to help people with the very basics of what drugs work is, which is relapse prevention, craving management, identifying a goal to work towards, knowing why it's important, working towards it. And that's going to be a fluctuating thing that changes over time. But if you've got the basic tools of how to identify a goal and how to manage cravings, and if you really know and feel the skill of managing cravings, then when a craving comes later in the week, you can feel confident to manage it and make your own choice. There's no magic pill we can do to give a person absolute control over their situation. And it's really important that we don't, that our clients think that we do have some magic pill, that there is some perfect solution to a behavioural issue, that there's a goal achievement issue that they might be having. Harm reduction information is an important integral part of all of these conversations. So whether a person, even if a person chooses that they never want to use again and they want help with that, there could likely be relapses that happen or mistakes that happen, and they need to know how to be as safe as possible when those things happen. So harm reduction information is just a normal part of all drugs workers' interactions, and there's lots of it available online. But it's, again, if it's solicited, if a person asks you, and if you get permission for someone to give you that information, then it's going to be learned much more better. And of course, tailoring harm reduction information to a person's own behaviour is much better than getting it online. So having a conversation about how to use the drugs they prefer to use, and in the context that they're using them, and where they usually go right and where they usually go wrong, and how to dose correctly, how to inject safely, how to manage all of the conversational issues, like how to say no to someone when you're feeling like you want to say yes to everything. these are all these harm reduction, all this information is a crucial part of every drug use, of the drugs worker's job in every single situation. I don't think if I see a person every week for a year, it will be a normal part of every single one of those sessions. It's mostly about goal achievement and skill building so that they can achieve their goals, but it's a normal part of every consultation. It'll always be coming back to the goal though. So a person's goalposts can shift week to week to week to week to week. If a person is sitting in front of us on Tuesday and they don't want to do drugs that week, on Saturday they might want to do drugs. And you can stay working with someone for a year with that changing goal, but essentially a goal has got to be something that can last, a goal they want to stick to until they see you again. So give me a goal, tell me something you want to work towards. How do you want drugs to fit into your life in the next 7 days when I will see you again? Regardless what happens in those 7 days, my job is to help you achieve that goal, even if you change your mind halfway through. And if you do, my job is always just to work with your goals. If your goal is that you do want to use, that's my job to support you to do that as safely as possible. But mostly the problem is the goalposts change. So the best way a drugs worker can help a person is to help not identify a fluctuating goal that can change at any minute, but to help stick one goal that matters to them on Tuesday and help them to achieve that, regardless how they feel differently about that during the week. That means managing cravings when they think they want to change their goal on a Saturday night, and giving people the skills to do that. So that's the role of a drugs worker's job. It's really important to know that, again, always in every consultation, it's always handing the control back. What is your goal? Why are you here? What can I do for you? These are the most important things that we can say, because a dynamic can develop where they're thinking they're letting us down if they've used, or which is not the case, or that they're disappointing us if they used, which again is not the case, or that they're doing this to please us, which is wrong. This is not the case. But these dynamics do happen when it comes to doing naughty things or illegal things like drugs. People can feel like they're doing something naughty, and they can create a you're the parent, I'm the naughty child kind of role. So it's really, really important that we're always in every session, reminding them that it's your goal, it's your choice. What do you want to do? How can I help you achieve your goals? You're not disappointing me. You haven't let me down if you've used. Let's just pick it up and help you achieve your goal next week. So it's always empowering the person in front of us to have choice and agency over that choice. During cravings, there's a whole lot going on in our brain and in our bodies in regard to emotions, and our decision-making process just gets really messed up. You can forget what your goal is, you can forget what's important to you, you can forget what you're doing tomorrow. And so when you make a choice in that moment, you don't have your full agency because you're being bombarded with different emotions. So a drugs worker's job essentially is to help a person manage cravings, make choices they feel they have agency over and ownership of, even when it's amid a powerful craving. And that's basically what a drugs worker's job is.